Hello, welcome to When the Smoke Clears. I am the recovery plug. What's happening, man? Are you guys doing all right today? I hope you are. Well, my day is going just great. Another great day in sobriety, another great day in spirituality, another great day to be alive. Yes, it is. So what's happening, man? Check this out. Before we get this video started, man, if you would please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the serenity prayer for the addict who still suffers, and for those people who are still bound down to some sort of struggle that keeps them stuck in this toxic world that we live in, man. So please, a moment of silence. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference. All right, now that we got that out of the way, it's time to dig in. Well, check this out, man. Today, this video, man, I was kind of didn't know what I wanted to talk about today, but guess what? I did a little bit of meditation and figured something out. And what I want to talk to you today is about the about words, about language, about the about how we talk. And if you think that the words that you use is got anything to do with where you're at today, is the words that you use keeping you from breaking the chains of adversity? Are the words that you use got you stuck in this hamster wheel effect of life? And I'm gonna just I got some notes written down from one of the guys that I follow, Dr. Stephen Young. I like that guy, man. He's very spiritual. He's got a lot of philosophical things that he talks about. He's he's got a doctorates in like kinesiology and a few other things behind his belt, right? And which I would say qualifies him as someone who's intellectual, who knows what he's talking about, right? And so another thing is, I'm just gonna go on and take a few things from him that I've learned and kind of explain them. Hopefully, I don't jack it all up, but I'm nonetheless going to give it a shot and just give you my interpretation of the things that he does, and give you some of the examples that he made, like pointed out in some of the things that I've studied from him and listened to him speak and that sort of thing. So, nonetheless, I'm going to replace these glasses real quick with some reading glasses because I can't read a darn thing without them. And check this out. Okay. Okay, it's a few things that I wrote down, and I'll read some of the stuff that I wrote down, and then just kind of go on that tangent and see where it takes us, right? And I wrote down how to use language to unlock your spiritual role in life. It says, why should you be mindful of how we speak? The words we speak are spelling cascodes of language that we don't see or comprehend in our daily lives. And this is kind of something that I gathered from some of the things that I've heard him say, and it makes sense to me. You know what I mean? It makes sense to me because according to spirituality, according to the folks of ancient times, which Dr. Stevens, a lot of his things that he talks about are integrating the antiquity things, practices, if you will, and spiritual connections to that divine energy, in a sense, and the Hermetic laws, right? And how all of that coexist with things that we do today. You know, with how science and medical studies kind of intertwine, all of that stuff kind of comes together in a sense, and now it's this whole energy of, wow, you know, it was always there, but now we're figuring it out. You know what I mean? And language has a lot to do with it, because it according to Hermetic laws, and in the antiquity times, you know, the ancient times, there was believed that words were part of code in casting spells, whether good or bad, right? And so, in a sense, if you dissect things like the Bible or the Lost Book of Thomas, and those kind of things, you know, going back into, you know, it could get real deep, right? You know, it could be the 12 lost tribes, all this stuff, all these people in different cultures of different times have these different interpretations. But the thing is that they all interpret things going back to that one energy. You know what I mean? They all believe in this one divine energy. And how you speak to it is crucial in that sense. And so in what I want to talk to you today about is exactly that. How do you are the words that you use, is your vocabulary compatible with the energies of the divine matrix? How about that? You know what I mean? Because you know, here's one little note that I can throw out at you, just so you can kind of ponder this one. Dr. Stephen says he doesn't use 6 words. There's quite a few other ones that he doesn't use, but the main 6 words that are not in his vocabulary are using the word right, wrong, positive, negative, good, or bad. And the reason he says that he doesn't use these is because these words remove judgment. In other words, if you're not using these words, because all of those words are, in a sense, judging something, right? Whether it's a person, whether it's an activity, whether it's a subject, whatever. It's a judgment word, an action word, a verb, right? And what I take from that is the fact that it's language that the divine matrix doesn't understand. The divine matrix understands language that is not coming from a material, tangible perspective, if you will. And what I mean by that is the fact that when you're choosing the word right, wrong, negative, good, bad, positive, that means you're in turn there. You're judging right. You're judging, but it's something that you're actually doing. Like, don't hold the cup like that. Hold it like this. You know what I mean? Don't talk like that. Talk like this. And throughout our lives, we've been molded into these beings that we live in that box. We live in a box of limitations. We live in a box of judgment, and that's just how it is. That's just how we were brought up in our lives today. You know what I mean? And in what the Hermetic teachings and the teachings of ancient times was not that. It wasn't limiting you to how you think. It wasn't limiting you on what you can do. And in other words, your creativity and your thought process was open to anything. You know what I mean? It was open to anything. But until we started using language, when words started coming into different words started, the vocabulary there, the vocabulary that was used in ancient times isn't the same. There's so many different words that we use today, and they interpret different things to mean, different words from back then. Now, words of today stem from those words. In other words, you can have one word that there's 3 or 4 words that stem from it. You know what I mean? So in turn there, man, the interpretation gets to be this whole movie of whatever you want it to mean. You know what I mean? So in turn there, that box, if you will, that we live in, that we were brought up in, said that, you can't do this, but you can only do that. You're gonna look. You're gonna be cast away if you're this, or if you're this, you're gonna be up here, and if you're that, you're gonna be down here, right? So it's just different ways, and I like one of the methods that or examples that Dr. Stephen used in a sense that, because hey, we want an example of how you're choosing words so that, quote unquote, when you're saying things, it's a code that's meant for you. It's like a spell that you're coding on yourself or somebody else. And let me just give you a quick example of what he said. And that was the phrase or the words that that you need to be aware of, like when you're, it's just being aware of your vocabulary, right? And being mindful of that. And one of the examples he gave was to say, okay, most of us say, I have to. And, you go to sleep, wake up talking about I have to. Well, I have to set my alarm. I have to get up in the morning. I have to go to work. I have to pay the bills. I got to take care of my kids. I have to, do whatever, right? And then replacing the I have to with I get to. Now it's I get to wake up in the morning. I get to set my alarm. I get to take care of my kids today. I get to put food on the table today. I get to breathe today. When you put it in that way, now your body, your senses, your emotion de-stresses, if you will. Try it. You know what I mean? Try that. Put things that you do on your daily basis and that you say, okay, I have to do X, Y, and Z, and then change the I have to I get to. And you'll see what I'm saying. You'll feel that sense of disconnection, that almost you feel the tension in your shoulders or in your body, in your muscles, of when you're saying I have to. When you're saying that, you're like, there's this tension in your body. And then when you say I get to, it's just like, ooh, I get to do this. It's crazy, but it works. You know what I mean? When I tried that and I was like, dude, I feel it. I feel that disconnection, and it feels good. You know what I mean? And that's what's meant by, changing the, it's your vocabulary connected to that energy, to the energy of the divine matrix. Because here's the thing, man, is that you and I have that connection. You and I have that ability. You and I have that power. You and I have that gift to connect, to communicate, to send out good energy so that we reciprocate it. You know what I mean? And it's one of the things that I learned from listening and reading and that sort of thing and just studying things is that when you change your vocabulary and you are mindful of the things that you do and you incorporate some exercises like meditation, sitting in silence, and dissecting problems in that sense. Now, when you're doing stuff like that, when you're activating your creative side, when you're activating the side that reads something, that pays attention to detail, to some spiritual podcast or some book that you're reading, or just paying attention to detail in the things that you're doing in your daily life, is part of that exercise of your neuroplasticity in your brain, right? And when you do that and you change your vocabulary to "I have to" versus "I get to," or vice versa, changing it from I have to "I get to," it activates that thing in your brain that says, okay, well, if we can't use that, now it goes out in search for something to replace it. You know what I mean? And where it goes to do that, it goes to that divine matrix. That's the energy, that's the field that it goes to. You know what I mean? And it goes to that field where you pay most attention to. In other words, whatever you're putting into your subconscious mind, into your conscious and subconscious mind, is where it's going. And when it taps into that, then it connects to that energy. Now it's looking for, okay, what do we got to do to replace this? Now it's not judging. Now it's looking for a different, it's looking for a different way. You know what I mean? It's looking for a different way. And this has been practiced it's been practiced since, from what I read and from what I studied, it's been practiced since, millions of years ago, like ancient times. You know what I mean? And we've been around. The universe has been there for a long time. The universe has been there so long, it doesn't change its language. It knows only one language. And that's the language that we got to tap into. And because we live in this world, this tangible world of senses, we need to feel, touch, hear, see in order to believe, is where things get a little tricky. You know what I mean? And what's happening now in today's life is that the things that they were talking about in the Hermetic laws and that sort of practice is now coming into fruition in today's world with the modern science and that sort of stuff. Now it's like, oh wow, this is how it works. So a lot of people now are searching for health and wellness, spirituality, the energies of that divine matrix. They're searching for that because now they're not thinking inside that box that we were brought up in. Now they understand that, okay, this is not how it's supposed to be. Let's get out of this box. Now we can do other things. I'm able to do other things. You know what I mean? Who says that I'm not able to do that? Why is that the case? You know what I mean? So now this is what, it can go on. We're not going to get, all deep up into it like that. But this is the thing, is that it's funny. Here's just one thing just to throw out there. It's funny how in all these ancient times they were, wars and cultures overtaking other ones and this and that, and removing their literature, removing the things that are them to remember by, to teach from. And with all these things that have been destroyed, there's a few things that have survived, and the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Hamad Habdid, the Nag Hammadi, I believe that's how you say it. And these are scriptures, you know what I mean? These are old scriptures that were found, and even the Hermetics, the Hermetic laws, they're the Emerald tablets, and that sort of thing. You know what I mean? It's real things that are now being decoded, and it's like, wow, this is what it means. And how did they know this that long ago, and we're now understanding. And words, vocabulary has a lot to do with keeping, I believe, humans in a bubble. You know what I mean? It's like they don't want, and when I say they, it could mean in a lot of things. You know, it could mean government. It could be different groups of people, or whatever, Illuminati. I don't care, whatever you want to put in that text, that they don't want people to know that you have the power to change things, that you have that light, that energy. You are connected to the divine matrix, and the way to tap into it is through talking to it in its language. And part of that is, meditating, exercising your brain, reading, listening to that spiritual calling. You know what I mean? And so it's just it was just something that I was reading, and I'm currently kind of in the middle of a few books that I'm reading, and one of them is got to do with the Hermetic laws, and the other one that I'm reading is the Lost Book of Thomas. And I just finished reading the threefold Lotus Sutra, 28 chapters, and so I'm gathering all this information, and it makes sense. You know what I mean? A lot of the things that I've read in that Lotus Sutra intertwines with stories from the Bible. You know what I mean? It's just weird, but it's just like I'm reading these things, and I'm like, wow, this is just like the thing that these apostles were talking about. You know what I mean? They're talking about the same light, the same energy, the same divine power, the same divine God. You know what I mean? They're using a little bit different languages. Their vocabulary is a little different, but like I said from the get-go, things that were used back in the ancient times, the words that are used today are derived from those words. You know what I mean? So it's all this code stuff, and it gets deep. You know what I mean? It gets deep, and some people may not believe it. You know what I mean? And that's just the world that we live in. Unfortunately, we live in a world that's toxic and blinding, and not everybody's going to believe certain things. You know what I mean? And myself personally, I believe the things that I've read, that I've studied, because I feel that I've had those experiences, those energies, those words have been part of me at some point in time in my life. I just feel this remembrance of it. I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody, but I could remember dreaming things and feeling things, and just knowing. I don't know how I knew them, but I did. You know what I mean? It's just a weird deal, but that's just that. I just feel that I'm connected to the universe. I'm connected to spiritual beings from all cultures. I feel like I'm all over the place, but in a good sense. You know what I mean? In a sense of something that I'm supposed to share. I'm supposed to help. I'm supposed to let somebody know about it, not only myself. You know what I mean? I feel like if I don't talk about things, I feel like I'm like doing something bad. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm supposed to be sharing it. Like if I didn't, I would be doing somebody a disservice, myself included. And I feel like that's part of um, my job in a sense as a human being. You know, I feel that that's part of the. Everybody has a part in the universe, in that energy field. Everybody's part matters. You know what I mean? And that's that to me. That's what I believe. I believe everybody parts matter. Everybody's part matters. And when we have the things of the world that we live in that it's so toxic, like myself, that at one point in time in my life I was had 10 years of sobriety and then relapsed for 5 years. Well, in that relapse is where I got lost to that dark world, and I wasn't supposed to be there. I'm supposed to be out here in this other world. And now that I'm back out here in this different world, I feel like, okay, now I'm connected back with that divine matrix where I'm supposed to be. Now, what I do this time around matters. I didn't see it. I was blinded in the first go around. You know what I mean? And the go around can be a lot of times, you know what I mean? Because you have different phases of your life. But you know what? That's how the world is. That's the way we live. It's supposed to be like that. It goes in phases, just like this, just like the waves of the water. That's the pattern of the divine matrix. That's how it goes. And all these patterns somewhere in time will line up. You know what I mean? And I believe that it's our job to stay connected so that future generations will be able to understand, will be able to live a good and better life than we did, I guess. I don't know. That's just my take. But yeah, so anyway, language, man, vocabulary is, for me, my belief is that it's a big thing. My belief is that it can keep you from breaking some chains. It can keep you from having a better relationship. It can keep you from staying stuck in the mud. It can keep you in that, world of depression. It can keep you in that world of negativity. And just by changing a little bit of your vocabulary can also break the chains and bring you into this brand new world of positivity, spirituality, and just, great things. You know what I mean? And I'm still working on my vocabulary. You know what I mean? Like I said, Dr. Stephen Young says he doesn't use positive, negative, good, bad, or what was the other two? Positive, negative, good, bad, or gosh, I forgot the other two. Then again, I don't got my glasses on. Yeah, right and wrong. Yeah, right, wrong, good or bad, positive or negative. He doesn't use those. And, I still use some of those words, and I'm trying. I'm trying because here's the thing, man, is that we're so unique, you and I, that we have our own connection to that energy of the divine matrix that, this is just my belief that my vocabulary might not work for somebody else's energy. You know what I mean? I believe that everybody's energy has them in a different mode of vocabulary. You know what I mean? That's why I think that, not everybody who's, let's just throw this out there, anybody who's ever been addicted to drugs or alcohol, and has moved past that, whatever they did to do that may not work for somebody else. You know what I mean? That language may not work for someone else. So the things that I do to keep myself in that road of recovery, spirituality, and positivity may not work for someone else. But the stories that I gather from other people and from reading and from studying could. You know what I mean? That's why I do the podcast, because, not only to share my own opinions and my own stories and the things that have helped me, but other people also, so that it may in turn there connect with your energies, and maybe that it'll help you. So, but yeah, so at any rate, man, it's been a good episode, I think, man. A little bit of insight on here, that whole vocabulary thing, and I think it's powerful. You know what I mean? I really do. I think that it's extremely powerful, and try that, man. Try that. I have to thing to I get to. You know what I mean? I have to go to work, and change it with I get to go to work. Try that and see how it works for you, man. And let me know. Maybe shoot me a comment, see what's up. And yeah, if anybody wants to share something, shoot me a comment. I'll be glad to talk about whatever, man. And also, if you would, please hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, give me a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. The only way we can help somebody else is by sharing the channel, right? And just know that when you do hit that subscribe button, it doesn't cost you a thing. But just know that when you do, you'll be helping out another veteran, another homeless person, another person dealing with PTSD, childhood traumatic experiences, drug addiction, alcoholism, depression, anger issues, suicidal thoughts, depression, all those kind of things, man, because I, my friends, have dealt with all those things at one point in time in my life. And guess what? I know a way out. So stay tuned, man. Until the next time on When the Smoke Clears, I am the Recovery Plug.